Call this meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority of Nassau County to order for Wednesday, November 10th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Mr. Pope.
Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we do thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to serve the citizens of Nassau County. Lord, we pray for our country, we pray for our leaders, and we pray for our servicemen and women and first responders. Lord, especially we want to recognize our veterans, and Lord, we're just thankful to them and what they've done. Pray, Lord, now that you would meet with us, that you would give us wisdom and discernment in all that we do. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
We don't have a flag stand, but it's on the screen. So join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, the first thing I want to do is recognize our veterans that might be present. I know we have 3 veterans here on our board. And with all the veterans out there, if you're a veteran, please raise your hand. We can see you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Appreciate it. This time, we have our annual elections tonight, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to our attorney so he can conduct our elections. Patrick.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. So the first, we have three officers, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Secretary Treasurer. So the process is we can go through each of these positions. We'll start with Chairman and a motion from a board member.
I'd like to nominate Danny Fullwood as chairman.
I think Danny has served 2 terms straight in a row, and I don't think, and I'm using Danny's word that he said several years ago, we need to have someone in there. There have been times. I nominate Mike Cole to be the chairman.
Well, you got a nomination. You're going to have to.
There's a motion on the floor. So there's a motion for Chairman Fullwood. Is there a second?
I second that, just to get it on.
So you have a motion in a second. If there's any discussion.
Discussion is, I'd like to say that he has contributed a lot in this last term, and he is well aware of the where we're at in a lot of issues. And I think it would be to our benefit that he stay in the position that he's in.
Any other discussion?
Commissioner Hannon, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Mike. I think Danny's done a phenomenal job, and I give him all the utmost respect in the world for what he's accomplished and how he's guided, especially me being new to this and the whole politics and everything involved. And he's really, helped me, guided me with certain things that I know I have a big mouth and I come forward very brave and abrasive at times. And, I'm trying to calm that issue. But I agree with Carol with the, been in a couple of years, and I think one person to have all that weight on your shoulders 3 years in a row is just too much. I think pop up a different person this year.
Well, I think the question would be whether, and I know we're talking about Chairman Fullwood, but if Vice Chair Cole would want to serve in that capacity, I think it's relevant. You served as Vice Chair for 1 term, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I would prefer Chairman Fullwood to remain as chairman, but if that's the pleasure of the board, but it is not what I would like to see.
Commissioner Fullwood has done a good job. I'm not saying that, but again, he's been there 3 years and, you know, he had been through a lot and he's up to date on all the stuff, but also Mr. Cole is up to date on too.
I think that's a fair point. It's a lot of work. And it's always good to have rotation in any board, just because that's good governance, good corporate governance practice. And it gives the public, you know, the benefit of a variety of talents. So I think that's good service to the public as well. I think that is the purpose of the vice chair positions. The intent is to move into the chairman role. Mhm.
I guess I need to speak on this. I'll do whatever the board wants. I have enjoyed serving these last 2 years as your chairman. I have worked very hard trying to keep the board focused on what we need to do. I don't mind doing this work. I spend a lot of hours taking care of business for the board. I would be more than happy to do it again one more year, but if that's not what your pleasure is, then I would certainly turn it over to someone else. No hard feelings.
Any further comment? Seeing none, Rosanna, we call the roll. The motion is for Chairman Forward to remain chair.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin,
No,
Commissioner Hannah,
No.
Vice Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Chairman Fullwood,
Yes.
That motion carries 3-2. Chairman Forward will remain chairman.
I want to thank you for allowing me to continue one more year, but I will tell you, this is my last year. There are a lot of things that are coming up this year that I think I can handle very well. I've reached out to a lot of people in the last few weeks to try to get this ship on course. And I think I've made some inroads. And I think you're going to see a result of that in the coming weeks. I've talked to city officials, I've talked to legislators, and a lot of other people, court people. And I think we can get this thing righted and head in the right direction. And I thank you for your support. So now,
One more while we're on that subject, and you're talking about your hours. I know for a fact you put in 30+ hours in 1 week doing work and getting ready for it. And I just want to put that out there so that people can understand that this is not, we don't draw our salaries that we get for 1 meeting a month. These past 3-4 months, we've had 2 meetings and we go to other meetings and we're assigned additional duties. And like I'm assigned to the TPO, the North Florida Transportation Planning Organization. And because of that, I attended a meeting this month and I attend a meeting every month for them. And I have other events that I have to attend being a member of the TPO. I also had to go out of town 3 days. I'm not complaining. I'm saying I did that on behalf of the Florida Ports Council. So we spend a lot more time than 1 meeting a month. And that is put out in the media, and I would like for that to be understood that we do more than 1 meeting a month. Thank you. I'm all going to say about that.
If you don't mind, can I chime in?
Yes.
Danny, like I said about it, I think you've done a phenomenal job. And the only reason I would say about changing was I think the tireless hours you put in there, nobody here understands how much you put in. And I could never commit to that many hours. And when I tell you I respect you more than you possibly can understand, I truly mean I respect the hell out of you. And the only reason I thought maybe something different would be in there is because I think not for nothing, I think you deserve a break. I think the last 2 years have been a huge uphill battle, and I think you've been fighting that whole time. I mean, not for nothing, I think you put more time in, hands down, than anybody in here. And I feel it, and I just feel sometimes you do, sit back and do the rest.
Thank you.
I just had a question for Patrick. So we have our elections annually. If a board member ever wanted to step down, could they step down from the office and ask to have an election mid-year?
I don't know if your bylaws speak specifically to that. Yeah, so I don't think there's any language that would prevent that.
So that's always an option.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And if I find my hair turning a lot grayer, I'll do that. My wife knows how many hours I put in for this job. But I love every minute of it. I love being in the fight. I love standing up for this board, and I will continue to do that this year. And I promise I will not let you down. I thank you. So I'll take over the elections from here on out, and I'll ask for nominations for vice chair.
I think Mr. Cole has done a good job as vice chair. I'd like to nominate Mike Cole as vice chair.
I'll second that. I think Mike is a good, Steve.
Motion been made and seconded to nominate Vice Chairman Cole for another year as vice chair. Any discussion?
Is there any need to like cycle through different board members for this role? Or do you think we should keep this one, this position static year after year? Because it might be a benefit to have, I mean, have you served as vice chair before?
I've served as vice chair.
And chair.
I
And
don't think
secretary.
that any of us should serve the same job 2 years in a row. Things as chairman. So
Any further- okay. Any further discussion? Rosanna, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin,
yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Chairman Forward.
Yes. Commissioner Cole, you've been elected by majority. Do you accept the position?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. And I will just want to say that I know that you've got a lot of work to do, and I will help you as much as I possibly can. And I know together we can get this accomplished.
All of them. All right, the next nomination is for our secretary treasurer. We want to keep that as one position. All right, the nomination.
Well, as you said, you'd like to see some rotation on it, so. Carol, you've done that, all of them. But
I don't have a problem doing that myself,
but I would like to see maybe Scott in that position.
My year as, well, that was a nomination, or was that a
Yes.
motion? Okay, I'll second that. So I can talk about it.
All right, nomination has been made and seconded to appoint Scott as our secretary treasurer.
So as, you haven't done this before, right, as secretary treasurer?
I did.
Okay, for 1 year?
Yeah.
I thought it was a great experience,
I did too.
and I think it's good just to see, how humans flow through and.
He ended up for the money.
Any other discussion? Rosanna, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin,
yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Chairman Forward.
Yes. Very good. All right, well, that's out of the way. Let's move on to the agenda. Rosanna, do we have any comments from the audience?
I did not receive it.
Okay. Approval of the minutes for October 13th, the monthly meeting, and October 28th, the special meeting. You want to take those separately or together?
Together. Take them together. I read through them.
Need a motion?
Oh, I'll make a motion that we take them both together. I perused them pretty thoroughly. I didn't see before.
Okay, yeah, and approve. Motion been made to approve the minutes of October 13th and October 28th. Any discussion? Any corrections or alterations? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved and adopted at the sound of the gavel. Pierre, you're up. Full count report.
So in your packages, you have the monthly financials for October. This is the first month of the new fiscal year. So we have the new 2021-22 budget. Nothing unusual. We do pay the insurance on October 1st. We made the insurance payment for $12,065. Everything else is as it has been in the last few months. I will say we probably need to look at the board attorney. We probably need a new estimate for the year, just in case, given the amount of payments that we have in October. That's it, unless anyone has any questions with the treasurers. So page 2 is the customs house. Any questions on customs house? Again, we paid the termite bonds and things like that. So, and then sewer, water, and did a little bit of maintenance, $260 for maintenance. And page 3 is the bank balances as of October 29th.
Any questions about the account report, treasurer's report?
So
If we need to make adjustments to the attorney's money, Patrick's gonna be leaving us in December. Do we have enough to
So
take care
obviously,
of that through December till we get a new attorney on board?
yes, and so I was asking more for an estimate
I
of
got
what we
you.
think total fees are going to be. Obviously, we have the we're applying for the Seaport grant funds, which could help offset some of those costs as far as increasing the budget. So we'll be making several changes to the budget as the year goes forward, as we receive those Seaport grants and decide how we're going to spend them going forward. So yeah, the question was not, obviously, yes, I don't think the money will be an issue. The question is, how much should that budget be for the year potentially is more the question.
Okay,
So the next section in your reports is the quarterly financial reports. I won't spend too much time talking about that because obviously the auditor's here right now. They're in our offices this week doing the audit. So hopefully, I don't know if we'll have it by the next meeting, but certainly by the mid-December meeting, I expect to have draft financials for us to look at, which will have been reviewed. So obviously these are prepared by us. The auditors are obviously going through them, asking us questions, looking at what we've done, and as I said, making determinations if there's any items that need to be approved, changed, or whatever. We're going through the property section right now. So as I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them other than we've completed the fourth quarter financials. They're in your package, and as I said, right now, the auditors, and they'll be finished up tomorrow, I assume, are finishing up their field work, and they'll go back to their offices and work on the audited financial statements for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. As I said, we should have those draft financial statements pretty quickly. So unless there's any comments or questions about the audit, the fourth quarter report, which is in your package, as I said, I think it's best to wait for the audited financial statements. And we'll spend some time talking about that and reviewing that once we have that. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
okay, any questions for Pierre? All right, the board attorney report. Patrick?
Thank you, Chairman. So immediate importance, we have 2 hearings on next Tuesday. Our value adjustment board hearing, the special magistrate for the tax collector. And then we also have a hearing in Chip Ross matter, Worldwide Terminals motion for reconsideration will be heard that afternoon. So we're preparing for both of those. They're also making had significant progress on the public records requests that are pending. Rosanna is obviously working with all of you and forwarding me the documents to review, which I've done for a number of batches. So we're continuing to move forward there. I spoke to legal counsel for West Rock this week regarding the cruise ship operations that have happened or maybe happening. It was a very productive conversation, very friendly conversation. They obviously want to work with us and the operator, but they prefer that those types of activities not take place at the port for a number of reasons, all of which you are aware of and have discussed. Again, it was a very collegial conversation. But that's their position right now, that this is a cargo port. They have activities going on. They're aware of the deed restriction. Their preference would be that the port not service cruise ships at this time. They're pretty well collegial and friendly, pretty direct about that. Our hearing on the motion to dismiss with the city of Fernandina Beach originally was going to be heard on January 21st, but the judge had a conflict, so we moved it just a few days to January 26th. And I think you're aware of everything else. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Patrick?
Do we need to take action on the cruise ship activity to protect our property interests since that's OHPA's property?
I think depending on if there's additional conversation about that or we know something like that's going to happen again, probably, but I think it's a little bit incomplete right now, whether that was a one-off or it's going to be recurring. I don't, I'm not aware. But the message was clear that West Rock, who is on the deed and is the beneficiary of the deed restriction, doesn't want to see that again. So, but I've also received other information regarding the position of the Coast Guard or maybe the Customs, but I didn't receive that firsthand. So, I don't have a clear picture on exactly what the situation is.
Isn't there another one scheduled?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think so. No.
okay.
And I too had a conversation with the Coast Guard and they said the same thing. Also, what our port is, and, an international port that they do not want to see cruise ships come in. So we'll talk to the operator about that and make sure we have an understanding. Take care of from here on.
I was just thinking that it might be prudent to have in writing a direction from the board that we do not approve that activity, whether it's just a letter, that we put that in writing so that we can, realize that we're not in approval of that activity and we don't want to see that happen again. I did speak with I guess it's the broker or the agent who brought in that ship. And he asked whether the deed restriction contained the specific language which would prohibit that particular type of vessel and the activities, because he said there's a difference between being a port of call on the itinerary versus being the primary port, with the passengers, leaving the ship, coming onto the ship, being a primary port of call. So he just was questioning whether it would indeed be the same definition, but I figured that would be something that we would look at if we had the ability.
Well, my recollection is the deed restriction doesn't make any such distinction, and in fact says a cruise ship terminal. So again, that's why I'm hesitant to. First, I haven't received full direction from the board on writing any kind of letter, but I'm hesitant to do that at this point because I don't really know all the facts or all the the circumstances of what's going on, what's happened, what may be going on, and if the port operator says it's not happening again, I don't have a full picture just yet.
And I think, from what I understand, the Coast Guard will notify the operator. It's not allowed. Okay, any other questions about that? right, we have our operator here tonight, Mr. Gucci, and it's your turn up, and you have some things you want to bring to us. You're on board. Kind of report, I hope, first of all.
I think, yeah, I got extra.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Chairman Ford.
I just got
Oh,
this, so it's
yeah.
not.
We have, as you can see, total tonnage for the month of October, 19,519 tons, a bit down from last month, but we had no pulp ship this month. And in fact, the pulp ship is due in on Friday. That slipped out of late October. So again, you see there's a little bit of bouncing here. You'll see the bounce back again in November. We still have at least 2 paper ships, and now we have 2 pulp ships. Still running nearly 70,000 tons ahead of year to date on overall tonnage, and we've broken the 300,000 ton mark after October. So overall, still very positive. We also have a number of active discussions with new customers that are lining up for the beginning of next year, and also December is going to be very busy. We're starting to see the trickle down effect, if you will, of the port congestion that we have both on the West Coast and the East Coast. So it's a good time to have some capacity, especially on the container side. Break bulk capacity is going fast, which is why we have a project for you to discuss in a little bit.
Chris, I know some ports have received some of those ships from California. Is that correct?
No, not specifically from California. And we haven't actually received a ship yet that's not one of our regular customers.
We're talking about some of the other ports in Florida.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville, but again,
Jacksonville.
Florida is actually much more directly seeing overcapacity from Savannah being pushed down. The West Coast cargo is still designed for the West Coast. They're looking for different ports of entry on the West Coast. That's a bigger change for the shippers, but we may see it. The way things are going, we expect it. Okay, thank you.
Any questions about the weather report?
The dockage days, does that, so the vessel port calls would include the cruise ship, and then the dockage days would include the cruise ship. So we still don't have labor thing on here for the passenger cruise ship. Would it be listed like that revenue? Would it be listed here?
No, this is not no passenger cruise information on this tonnage report, because that's not what it is.
But would it be included in vessel port calls?
Port calls.
Yes, the
And
port
the
calls,
dockage days?
and the dockage days will include that.
Are you going to provide a report about it elsewhere?
Again, we are a cargo terminal, although we're not a cruise terminal, but we've had a tradition here of an occasional cruise ship. So it hasn't been enough to keep track of head count, but that's something we might do. As you heard, this issue of cruise ships is right now up in the air, so we'll see what happens.
So how large was the vessel that docked over the weekend?
Yeah, 320 feet.
So it would have been 380 a foot. According to Sarah.
Exactly, whatever the tariff said.
Chris, you have something for us for approval of a new fabric warehouse building? Would you like to present that now?
Sure, if you like.
Yes.
So we tried to give you a complete package on this. This is, we're looking for an additional 50,000 square feet of fabric warehouse building. As I mentioned before, we have several commitments now from customers that we're in the process of finalizing, which need additional break bulk space. And this would be primarily pulp and plywood. Plywood is one of the things that's being pushed out of containers and returning back to break bulk. And some of you will remember that the port has always, over its history, handled a lot of plywood by break bulk. And even as recently as 2019, before the tariffs hit, we had a couple of vessels of plywood break bulk. So with break bulk, you need warehouse space, and pretty much maximize the space that we have. And it may not always be that every inch appears full, but we have to maintain a certain amount of capacity of space based on commitments that we have. So there's peaks and valleys in the flow of the break bulk cargo, obviously. So with all of the current facilities we have, including the recent addition of the 15,000 square foot fabric building, we don't have enough capacity to take contracts from these customers without providing additional space. 50,000 is the amount that we feel we would need for what's projected for next year in terms of active discussions. And we learned a lot on the utility and efficiency of the fabric buildings. And so that's why we've proposed a 50,000 square foot building. We've given you a sheet that shows the location of the building, which would be in the extreme northeast corner of the terminal. It would fit there quite nicely without interfering with existing operations and also without having to spend additional monies for a floor. We'll be able to use the terminal, essentially the terminal surface with a little bit of additional asphalt just to smooth it out back there. So that's all in the price estimate, which is approximately $1.4 million, based on a bid submitted by Big Top, which is about $1,080,000 for the building itself. And they've committed to a very aggressive timeline. Essentially, that's great. We actually have working AV here. Thank you very much. Yep, there it is. It's going to move a little bit forward from the end so that the trucks can get behind it in order to have flow through traffic. So it's more where the orange box is than where the white pieces are.
What about this area over there? Flooding issues? Are there any flooding issues in that particular area?
No, that's the other reason for putting it there. That area is high and dry, even under the worst circumstances. We've never had flooding issues back there. It's forward of that and down towards the dock, which would be the northwest corner where you're seeing the flooding.
And that looks like 4 buildings, but it's actually 2.
Well, yeah, it's actually 2 25,000 square foot buildings, because it would be much more expensive for a structure that could span one building across the width of that. So I think we have the dimensions in the package. Also a sketch. It's essentially 2 100-foot wide by 200-foot long by 30-foot high structures side by side.
Do you have a rendering of what it would look like from the street view?
No,
It's only the aerial.
No, but
It's similar to the one we have.
yeah, I would say it would appear lower. It's the same height as the one we have, but I think because the hill is higher on Escambia, it would actually stick up less.
Is it the same size as this one over here?
It's the same height. It may even be the same length.
It says 35-foot center height.
Yes.
And I would like to say that I was on the property during the King meeting tide on Saturday, and that area was high and dry.
That's great. Yeah, appreciate you seeing it for yourself there.
Just the other fabric warehouse that we have here. Are we using that 100%, or what, is there some problem with using that? I think I've heard something somewhere that we couldn't use that for some reason.
No, it's not true.
Okay,
It's perfectly functional and we have used it and we will be needing it in December. I can tell you that. And it's really the only overflow we have at the moment from our other physical buildings. And with the commitments that we have, that some of which are actually starting in December, that's going to be fully utilized pretty much at all times.
well, I want everybody to realize these buildings, these new warehouses are on port property.
Yeah.
It's not increasing our footprint into the historic district. So it shouldn't be objectable to anyone because it's better to have it here on our property than try to put it somewhere else that's not on our property, which we don't want to do. So
Do we have a utilization rate for the current warehouse? So we can validate, what we're using of what we currently have versus, why we need this. Do you know who the customers are, proposed customers? I didn't see that in here. Maybe I missed it. Did I miss it?
No, you didn't. I can't unfortunately reveal the customers. They're not in contract yet because we have to confirm that we have this space approved and, in process. And secondly, these days, everybody makes you sign a confidentiality agreement. They don't want to know each other and their competition to know who's talking to who, which ports they're talking to.
I don't know why you want to spend all this money on a new warehouse if we're not projected to be able to use it.
You can say that again.
$1 million, $1 million.
We are going through the master planning process, and this would be would this be the largest warehouse structure?
No,
Single
no,
structure?
No, the other warehouses across the street are bigger.
The two large ones are, 75,000 and 85,000. Right?
So you can't zoom out.
Can you zoom back out?
You can't see them there. I don't know if it's on this
Zoom
picture.
back out.
It may not be on the print. It's not a question of Zoom.
And our tent warehouse.
No, it's just.
Oh, yeah, there they are.
Yeah, they're-
That's how big we are.
You can see it.
How much bigger they are than this one?
So of the existing warehouses, I know there's oats in one. Could you just kind of give us a rundown? of
Sure, there's no more
what's
oats.
in the US?
No, the oats are gone. We have a small pile that's being taken out. We have not recontracted with the oats folks because this covered warehouse space is much too valuable, and things like the forest products we specialize in, wood pulp, craft liner board rolls, and now plywood and lumber is coming into the mix. They're obviously able to pay higher rates for the utilization. So the oats is really probably, we're not going to see that again.
And there was a time that I was on the port and I saw that new tent building and it was at capacity.
Yeah, it has been.
Oh, I've seen it back myself 2 times. I've been there.
Chris, these new warehouses, they're 540,000 a piece. Wouldn't the first one that you built 250-something thousand?
No, it was over 300,000. I mean, roughly the square footage price is comparable. It's a little more expensive per square foot because you need these larger structures, but it's comparable.
Okay, now where them buildings come together, like where he's got that area right there, are they gonna be a drainage problem there when water comes off the roof to them? They'll be going against each other.
How close are those buildings, in other words?
Well, that's a good question. I assume they're going to be very close, but when if we can get an okay to proceed forward, then they will start the design. And if you remember, before the final approval of the agreement with Big Top the last time, which the agreement will be between OHPA and Big Top, We will have a complete set of design drawings, which will deal with the storm drainage issue that you raised. And they will be certified and stamped and sealed by a Florida professional engineer. So I'll get on the phone tomorrow with Stan and call and see what the answers are to that, but it will certainly have to be dealt with in the design.
Chris, where on the board here is the worst part of flooding problem,
Well, right around where the, no, yeah, it goes as far as where the arrow is now, coming in from the north. At king tide, it might get in the lower area between the track and the dock. That can be flooded.
Yeah.
But the main, keep the arrow right there, John, Rosanna, perfect. That area and then come back down a little bit, across the tracks, a little more, right in that area, that little corner there, from the stack of containers on the left to the beginning of that block on the far right, that little corner can be flooded.
Is there anything we can do to improve that?
Well, the kinds of things that we'll have to do are pretty significant civil projects, which would be things like raising the elevation of that corner, but also there is no restriction on the tide. If you can see where we're up by the far right corner, the tide just flows in and flows out. And you've heard me mention something like a tide water management type system that will be able to divert or prevent, maybe like I don't know what they call it in Venice, but a gate that might prevent just the tide having unimpeded access. But again, that would have to be designed.
No way to build a seawall here to keep that from flooding. So
No, we have to have access to the dock. So the seawall, if you will, or the tide water management would be up at the north end of the dock where that land is, somewhere there to perhaps just block some of the tide from coming in. And then you probably need to raise that elevation by a foot or two, maybe 3.
And what the port did, knowing that there would be a high tide, they moved all their containers out of the possibility of getting water.
Yeah.
now, let me ask you something about when the cruise ship came in, they were docked at this end, is that correct?
They were down on the south of Earth, right?
Oh,
Which would be to the left, yeah.
With blue.
Yep, right around there. Mhm.
Okay. How did you secure this area of the docks here to keep people away from area they shouldn't have been in?
We put a strip of containers with
Right,
the
right here.
permission of Summers Isle, right, just to block access from anybody, creating a secured area within a secured area. And we also had extra security guards to make sure nobody wandered.
And they came off on this end. To
Right.
load on to the,
Well, I believe we try to bring the buses directly onto the dock, so they can literally step off the ship and a few steps away, step onto the bus.
all the way up here.
Yeah.
And brought them all the way.
Yep,
came this
exactly,
way,
right,
came in.
exactly. The buses would come in, they would go across the south ramp there, or the center ramp,
Yeah, right there.
and then go out by the south.
So the ball in this area passed the way.
Actually, this time it was on the other side before. Yeah, no, you're right, exactly. Allow the buses, and that's exactly where it was. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The rest of the floor was secure.
Mhm.
How about down below the ramp there, was anything needed to be done there?
Again, with the security guard and our stevedores there wasn't really any reason.
Coast Guard there to supervise?
Well, the Coast Guard approves this, and actually a port of call is in our facility security plan. So we have the permission of the Coast Guard for these type of ports of calls.
Okay.
And yeah, so that we let them know, and we also have Customs and Border support on it, and they approve the procedure of the people coming on and off. They check the documentation. Even though they were all US citizens and it was not coming from a foreign port, they still check it all. And then when the buses come back, they check each person on the bus to make sure they hadn't picked up any strays and that everybody was accounted for.
Okay, so the total money for these warehouses is $1,453,000.
That's correct.
That's not for each, that's for both.
That's for the total project. So the 2 buildings which constitutes one building of 50, essentially one building of 50,000 square feet is $1,086,000 from Big Top. Plus, we have a quote for $130,000 in paving. And then we have the erection, which we've got Coastal Company, which is the certified outfit that Big Top recommends, and that is total price for 2 shelters erected is $236,000. And we have 2 additional bids that came in that I didn't have when we submitted the package. And the rub building bid, and by the way, this is a 12-week delivery with the Big Top. Rub is talking 6 months or more for delivery, and Rub's price is between 1.75 and 2.5 million for just the building and the erection versus the 1.08 and the 200,000. And then we also have Clearspan, and they're at 1,455,000. And there's one other one that basically said, we don't even sell them anymore, we only rent these buildings. So we feel like a sole source would be appropriate here. There's nobody else willing or able to meet both the price and the short delivery time frame.
So you're asking for Big Top,
Right,
and they're the ones that put up the last
correct.
warehouse. Yeah, they did a great job.
The Big Top is out of Perry, Florida.
That's right.
Very, very responsive and help us with the problems we're having.
So from the procurement perspective, did we validate that we can do a sole source procurement? Did we have to do a competitive bid process? Did you look at that?
No, but this isn't, as far as I understand it, this isn't a contract with OHPA, this is a contract with Worldwide or Nassau.
No, it would, we have a grant in place. that
Okay.
would roll,
Yeah.
So it would be.
So
So
we
I wanted to
need to
give you
know-
time to consider that and what we would need to do. But we still need to go forward and at least get the process going with Big Top. And if you want us to do a solicitation, if that's your view, then you let us know and we'll put something
I
out.
just need to see the grant language, so
Mhm.
if you can get that. to
Yeah.
me, then-
Just for information, this happened to us last time with Big Top versus the other competitive companies that could provide the product. And FDOT approved the sole source, and our OHPA's former counsel, Judge Branham, approved, he has to provide a certification
Sure.
on one page that the proper procurement was followed.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay, but we'll show you all that stuff. Happy to work with you on that in advance. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so what are you asking for us right now?
Basically just a green light to move forward with the project, try to pull everything together and hope to come back to you with the sourcing issue solved and with a contract that Patrick will have reviewed from whoever it is that we end up buying the building from. For say the next meeting or the next possible meeting, we could have all that together.
It's not an emergency situation, and we got time to look at everything.
Yeah, well, this is not a final approval by
Right,
any means. It's a green light, so we can at least get them to start the design and firm up things, provide a draft contract, allow Patrick and I to work on the sourcing issue, so that we have a chance to pull it together soon. It is in a sense time of the essence though, because we made these commitments for ships, even starting in January, where we may have to move cargo off terminal to our off-port warehouses, which are also struggling with capacity. But that involves a lot of extra trucking. So ideally, we want to get these up as soon as possible. And the shippers really need the onboard storage. They don't want to have extra trucking charges involved.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with this project.
Second that.
Motion been made and seconded that we allow Chris to move forward with the project and come back to us for the final info.
I would just like to say that I think we should wait to take any action until we know that we can do a sole source. Because he's asking for us to move forward with Big Top and we don't know whether we can. And number two, I would like to say that I have some pain of conscience in approving further development in warehouse space when we don't know what percentage of business is open and public business and what is private business, as Mr. Rucci has testified in court. And until we understand a bit more, I have I have difficulty approving, this scale of additional development work.
Well, we're not approving the development, we're approving him to move forward and bring us back the information that we'll need to make the decision. We'll have to tie in the grants, we have to tie in the other information. I think so it's perfectly legal, we've done it before. And if there's any problem with that, we'll know by the time he brings back the information and we can move forward.
So why don't we need to vote today? What are
Well,
we
we need
approving?
him to be able to move forward. That's
To
what the
provide
motion is.
additional information
Yes.
to us?
Yes,
So it could just be a request for additional information?
right.
It's not really an approval.
Well, we want to get a sense of the board that the project has your support, because we're going to start spending time and money, ourselves and the vendors, to bring it all together. And we do have a very short timeline here, and it is time of the essence, so.
Yeah.
You know, we know how, you know, what we need to do to satisfy the final approval. We've done it before with your council. We'll work with Patrick starting tomorrow if we get the green light.
We're not approving the final product. We're just telling him to move forward.
Well,
So,
and just when we talk about things that way, we say we're approving moving forward, remember the grants. Okay, and what the board thought they were voting on was moving forward with a preliminary request.
I'm sorry, I think this is totally different. We know the information that we need to know, and he's presented it to us, he's given us the whole packet. And just to move to the point where we have all the information we need is what we're doing. We're not approving something we don't know anything about yet.
And this is just day-to-day business that we're doing, we're conducting right now. We're not officially approving anything at this moment, but we're doing our business that we need to do.
So we're requesting additional information about this project.
Yes.
And I would just say a sense of the board support. It's always subject to final approval.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No,
Motion carries. All right, Bruce, move forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we got something else for us.
There's another question we have from ZPMC. Again, this is OHPA's contract with ZPMC USA, which is the contractor for the new cranes. The new cranes are both in operating mode. Obviously, what's called the change of gauge has been accomplished. They are both standing on their newly constructed legs, which are now standing on the crane rails. I think some of you may have been down to see it. It's really great to see. They're terrific, and we've been actively, working them into operating shape by doing some maintenance and by starting to get some time for the operators. They're not commissioned yet. We've got a punch list that ZPMC is working on. But unfortunately, what's developed is in trying to finalize this with Stan Harrington and our team, they've come up with a couple of things that were overlooked in the initial contract. So you have a copy of a one-page request for an addendum in your packet. Let's see what page that's on. I think it's right after the thing, the building stuff.
Page 58 in the
58.
packet.
It's approximately $200,000 of additional cost. Yeah, I provided a covering email. The main element is everyone seems to agree now, meaning our team at ZPMC, that commissioning these cranes, we should commission them with new sets of wire ropes or cables, which is basically one long continuous cable. Remove and install new main hoist and boom hoist ropes on 2 cranes, like 56. And there's really no argument against that. Although the crane overall is in very good condition, it was not being used on a day-to-day basis in the last year or two up in North Carolina and in the last 6 months since it's moved to here. So you get some corrosion on the wire ropes. And the wire ropes have years of use on them.
We have grant money already for this.
Yeah, there's enough money on the grant side to cover the overage on a 50% basis. And, you know, the wire ropes are fine. Both cranes, we plan to commission them and load test them, which is part of the commissioning, so that they can be used. But to be err on the side of an abundance of safety and also not having to spend money for years to come, now's the time with the contractor mobilized. Right, exactly. So that's the main cost. And then you've got the hurricane tie down engineering study. I mean, you're welcome to handle with the contractor on that one. They will come and address your next meeting if you would like. And then the third one is again, safety and security. There's certain parts and safety devices in the elevators that would be required by today's standards, which of course we insist we have. And they weren't included. They're not on the crane now, and they weren't included in the original estimate. So that's the additional $49,000 for the elevators.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with this. I agree with Chris. If we're gonna get it done, might as well get it done now with the money for funding there for it. We can use it. And then everything's new. Gives us a fresh clean slate.
I second that motion. Them cables need to be replaced every so often in there, and they are the main safety part of the crane.
Question been made and seconded that we spend our grant money that's already been allocated, another $210,000 for these items. Any further discussion?
I just had a question. Are the cranes technically fully operational?
Not
Did they
yet.
ever reach that point?
Not yet.
Okay.
We expect that by the end of this month.
Okay, and so it wasn't included in our original contract to get the cranes fully operational?
Well, no, they were gonna use the existing cable, but before they tested, they said we might as well replace the cable. You know what I mean?
I think that's a good safety issue. But
They can certify it the way it is, but why certify something if you can replace it?
And then have to come back later and get another grant to replace it.
So there was an issue with getting the cranes operational. I just heard this like through the grapevine. Can you explain like why there was a delay in getting the cranes like fully operational besides this component that you just discussed?
I'm not aware of what you might hear on the grapevine, but we're in daily touch with the engineers and the contractors representatives. There's been no issue in getting them operational. The fabricators, not surprisingly, in today's supply chain crunch, were behind on fabricating some of the steel parts. So the timeline has slipped. We were hoping for late summer, and we're here in late fall, but it's really just because of fabrication issues. But there's been no concerns or issues getting them operational. As I said, they're actually being used now for testing and for the start of the commissioning process, and they're running great.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just questioning because it's always the change orders and these types of projects that can kill you on your budget. And so I just questioned that we didn't originally contract for, fully safe and appropriate. My understanding with the ZPMC contract is that it would have left us with fully safe and complete functional cranes. And so that's the reason for the question is, why are we paying more to basically achieve the original result?
I understand. Well, I think we're very fortunate. No one likes change orders, but we're very fortunate really on a $5 million project to have only this one at the end. And thank goodness it's only $200,000.
Right, in fact, we got these cranes for free,
Because when you do work on older cranes and you re-engineer them, sometimes you don't realize what things come up. I'm not excusing it, we should all beat up the contractor, but at the end of the day, they're doing a fabulous job and we need to get this done.
So it's better to let us know.
No, they weren't free.
They were $5 million.
I didn't say free. No, I said-
I said free.
Oh,
Like they're
yeah.
free from our,
Well,
from North Carolina.
It's better that they let us
yeah,
know.
$1, right. That was a tough negotiation. They didn't volunteer or give anything for free, but yeah, the state's into it for 2.5 million, as you know, and we're into it for 2.
And I think anybody that's done business with any contractor knows about change orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna come. Because once you get started building something or repairing something, you're gonna run into problems that you didn't.
But on this end, it's better that they let us know that,
Oh, yeah.
because they can, no offense, but I've been on job sites where they overlook a little something here and there just to get it done. And then a year later, it's like, oh,
All right,
there you go, back.
I think we've talked about that enough. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed, no.
No.
Carried.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
All right, unfinished business. Court attorney position. Lou? Commissioner Hill?
The agenda, it's not really my item, it's really more Patrick's, but I wanted to know if we had any, if we had any progress on that.
I know we've gotten one application, resume turned in. I know I talked to another attorney last week and he had to check with people he works for already to make sure there was no conflict. And he got back to me and told me there was no conflict and that he would be submitting a resume. So I know we're gonna have at least two. So hopefully by next meeting, we can start talking about that and schedule something for them to come in for interviews.
So one of the things that has come up when I've spoken with other lawyers and asked them if they're interested, you have government lawyers and transactional lawyers who do not do litigation. And some attorneys have asked whether we'd be willing to, take on someone who didn't handle the litigation for us, and then perhaps we basically get subcontract for litigation matters, which could be with Welch and Bingham or could be with another firm. But I just wanted, Patrick's reading on that.
Yeah, I had similar conversations, so a couple of things, I think. Not unlike what we just spoke about or what we regularly do. I think the board's probably gonna have to be a little bit more flexible in the setup going forward. Every attorney I know is just as busy as everybody else, and so that's a component. And when you mix in the rate that OHPA can pay, that eliminates people, and then you add in the volume of work, which certainly is more than I anticipated when I started in March. That's another factor. So I do think in reviewing or selecting someone, if you are willing to consider the fact that you may have a court attorney that's at these meetings, but that court attorney, with the permission of the board, can then go identify other counsel to handle litigation or other one-off matters that are at what I would call smaller shops that can handle the lower rate still effectively. I think you're going to have to be more flexible in that you may not have one attorney that does 100% of the court's legal work. You may need to find somebody that can come in and help you run a meeting or be a resource for running a meeting, but then can identify attorneys that can be retained or however you want to call it to do some of the other work. I think it's going to have to be that approach going forward. I do think what you experienced before, your biggest hurdle is getting someone with the experience, the local government experience that can do this part of the job is totally different from the litigation part of the job. I spoke to somebody today that I think would be great to handle the litigation, and he readily admitted, I am not comfortable helping you run it. So that's your conundrum, along with the fact that everyone is crazy busy right now. So it's a difficult search.
Yeah, that's something we definitely need to look at with each person that applies, so. Okay, any other questions about that for now? All right, interim court director recruit.
So Patrick had prepared a job description for this, which I'm not sure if that was circulated to the full board. Was that sent to everybody? Okay, so did anybody have any feedback on that, or would you like to discuss maybe a timeline for how we would advertise that and potentially interview?
I have personally had a great deal of time to look into that and discuss it with anybody outside of the board. I'd rather wait at least another meeting, look at it, and decide what we want to do,
So
and figure out the funding also.
Yeah, I'm with Danny, I'm trying to figure out the funding, that's my biggest concern. We haven't gotten any word back on any of that funding yet, right?
So one thought would be to advertise, just to sort of stimulate proposals.
Can't pay the people. There ain't no money there.
Well, we know we have the ARPA funding, right? And so we can fund a temporary project, a temporary role like this. We did validate that at the last meeting. That's why we prepared the job description.
Yes, you
Temporary.
could pay obviously, the ARPA funds are a
Yeah.
fixed amount of funds. Yes, you can pay, this would be an additional port authority employee,
If we get it.
yes.
My biggest concern is how long are we gonna use this person? A year, 2 years? And after that time, what happens? We're right back where we started. So what is your
So in
justification for wanting an interim port director?
That's a fair point. So we find ourselves in a recovery period, just like any other local government body, division of the state. We are in a recovery period. We are in a disruptive period. It's hard to bring in workers. We have lots of different problems. And I believe that this period of 6 months to 18 months is a recovery that could be directed by one person. And part of what they do is help us recruit for the permanent job. And that's why the job description says specifically that this person would be someone who wouldn't apply for the permanent position. And that insulates it and makes the process an honest process and gives us the opportunity to work with RSMH on a master planning process and have, someone who is a chief, a CEO that we can use as a liaison between us and the operator. I think it's important to move forward because the ARPA money is, a pot of money that we do need to have a plan for. And this person could also help us with that plan. I think that's something we should take action on before waiting and continuing to take action ourselves as a board, not having a CEO, not having a director.
So you don't think we should look at for someone permanently, just someone that works through this situation we are in right now?
Well, the ARPA funding specifically says it's not supposed to fund ongoing salaries. That the idea is that it funds short-term projects with long-term.
Right.
And so crafting it this way, I think, is both artful and appropriate because it addresses the actual need we have. It uses the money for the purpose that it's actually intended for. I think we may not know what this person's going to come forward with in terms of a proposal. They may propose 6 months, they may propose less, they may propose more time. And as we work through that process, we would have a clearer picture of, that 18-month, 6-month, 18-month period.
The question I have is why is the note, they can't apply for the position clause there?
Well,
We
because
like them and
by
they did a great
definition,
job.
this is you have to use it for projects, right? For
Right.
short-term, like stopgap type work. That's what the ARPA money is for. It's specifically for recovery. It's not for us to say, oh, we can now fund our salaries. We can now fund
No, but
ongoing
would they be
operations.
able to apply for the position?
I think you're asking, there's two different things here. You're saying a part-time person, and then you're saying, well, why can't they apply for
Later, yeah.
later? They can.
Well, it says they can in here.
Well,
It specifically says it.
we discussed that the last meeting and my thought on that, and I thought we had consensus on that point. We can go back and look at the minutes, but we discussed that person helping us craft the job description and recruit a final director. That's the whole point of having an interim. And whenever you have an interim, Patrick and I have discussed this with interim attorney positions, that if you're applying for the final job, no one else is going to apply because there's the idea that the interim already kind of has it hook, line, and sinker,
understand.
There are some ethical implications. You have an interim that's seeking a permanent job. They have more access to you as a voting member.
Gotcha.
You know, so there are some, they can be overcome, but there are some issues that can pop up there.
I just think that stuff and the person's good.
Well, we may not have anybody apply for a permanent position. You never know. And we may have to ask this person if they want it. I mean, that's always a possibility. But, okay, so how do we move forward here? How do you want to do it?
Well, I would like to make a motion to authorize Rosanna or Patrick to place an ad, or us to at least reach consensus that we are advertising for the position. I'm not really sure where we would have to advertise for it. But if we just let it be known that we are seeking this, based on this criteria, that we're seeking proposals for this role, and that the funding is through the ARPA grant, and that proposal would have to be consistent with the ARPA funding. But we can, Patrick, if you would take a look at this, one last time, just to make sure we haven't left anything out.
I don't think you need a full motion and vote. If there's a consensus to put this out there, that would be the direction that Rosanna and I would need.
I'm okay with us moving forward with it to put this out there. We would be using those funds and for a specific period of time. So would we have a specific amount that the interim port attorney would make? I mean, the director.
We don't know what the salary will be. Is that your question?
Yes, what we, if we got these funds and we're saying, is there a specific period of time that we could use these funds? And so then do we divide that in and say, this is what
Are we asking this person how much they would do this for? Is that what you're
that's
asking?
what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
Decide.
The call to action in the ad says that the qualified candidates should submit their proposal.
Okay, all right.
So it'll be up to them,
That's up to them.
there, and then we can determine whether we can pay that or not.
Well, the only thing that's open, I think, in the draft is the date, the deadline for submissions. So we could set a deadline. We may not have to set a deadline, but we could commit to one now, which would probably help us to be disciplined in the process.
Suggestions for a deadline?
So 3 months, April, March. I mean, we first got to find out if the fees are coming in. We still don't even know what funds are coming in.
How long will that take? Yeah.
Obviously, so,
Your guess is as good as ours.
yeah, I mean, I expect it to move pretty quickly. I don't expect to be any delays. Obviously, we're still in the process of preparing
Correct.
the submission for the initial funds.
Right.
So we expect that to go in Monday, Tuesday. I expect it to be pretty quick from there.
Right.
And then it's monthly, you can submit monthly, so I don't think there'll be a delay as far as funds.
So January-ish. So to speak, funds start flowing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go with that timeline, knowing that the funds will be flowing by January, let's say. You want to give a 2-month window for them to submit, so we would be into February. So by the end of February,
My thought was 45 days, so.
okay, mid of February.
45 or our first meeting in January. We couldn't do it then,
So the submission deadline would be
because you gotta,
maybe a week prior. We wouldn't want to include any applications in the meeting packet, so that's 1 week prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
So why don't we just say January 1?
okay,
Does that give you enough time, Rosanna?
yeah, sure.
And that's when the package should be turned in by January 1.
Yeah.
They're going to fight the holidays and what people are doing with the holidays.
Well, if they want the job,
People
you gotta do
will
what you gotta do sometimes.
So we get,
What's the date? It's the first meeting, January what? 10th?
January 1's the Saturday. So you may want to push it to a Monday or end it on a Friday? I don't know that you want to end it on New Year's Eve, guys.
How about the third? That'll give us a week and a half to our first meeting.
That's,
Okay. The third then goes on. Good. Move on. All right, next thing on the agenda here is the COVID relief funds. What do we need to discuss about that? I think Pierre's covered just about everything. Still don't know yet.
We're still in the week.
Waiting on the federal government to.
Well, so we're obviously gathering documents to resubmit the package. Obviously, we have the open issue of the federal procurement guidelines. Just to say, I mean, but that applies to the port master plan, to the port operating agreement, to Patrick's contract, my contract. All those are supposed to be under federal procurement guidelines. So that issue is still open. So, but we're preparing and moving forward with the submission as it's been presented to you the last meeting.
Now, do we know yet if we can, any of these funds can go to the port operator or anything?
So if you remember, and that's where my comment about the federal procurement guidelines, right? So all funds expensed under this grant need to follow federal procurement guidelines. But that's, as I said, my point is that the security contract, Patrick's contract, my contract, the port operating agreement, the port master plan agreement, all those things are funds that we are submitting for reimbursement under this grant.
Yes.
All those are contracts. And all would fall under that same provision.
Right.
So we are moving forward. So,
Okay. The operator has submitted a plan for his funds that he would like to have. And we talked about a little bit about that last meeting. Chris, if you'd be willing to sit down with me at some point before the next meeting and talk about these and see if we can come to some agreement as to what we can may be able to give you and what we can't.
Be happy to do that.
Okay, I'll call you and we'll sit down and talk about this.
Very good.
All right.
Chairman Fullwood,
Yes.
I would like to recognize that there are a lot of port employees here tonight.
Yes.
And I thank you for your attendance. And I want you to know that we are trying and we're working on it, but we can't make promises until we find out for sure what we can do with this. But just working together, Chris and Mr. Rigucci and Mr. Fullwood in the next days or so might be able to come to some sort of resolve or some answer for what we can do.
As we said, we're dealing with the federal government, so you know how that works.
There's a lot of rules and regulations of what can be touched and how.
But we're doing the best we can. We're trying to look out for you, but we've got to follow federal guidelines. So until we can get some answer on those, not much we can do right now, but we got you in mind. Okay. Any other questions about the relief funds? Legislative meeting. There was a legislative meeting today. What we were interested in did not come up. The city has posted a notice in the paper about it, which they have to do. They will vote on it at their next city commission meeting, which is the 16th. I'm going to be at that meeting, and if I'm allowed to speak, I will speak on that. I have talked to the mayor and the vice mayor, and we have reached out to the city attorney. We're in hopes that we can come to some working agreement to do some of the things that the city wants us to do. Well, it's important that we work together. We need to reach out to each other and stop all this foolishness that's been going on. And I, for one, am willing to do that. I hope we can sit down together and work these things out. We have to do it before it goes to Tallahassee. So the time is short. The legislative delegation will be coming back over here, I believe, on December the 8th. I think that's when they were set it up for. 6th or the 8th, somewhere on that week. Or was it? Yeah. Yeah. The 8th. So that's when the city will present it to them. I'm looking for an agreement between us and the city to resolve these issues that they want to see. Some of them, I know can agree on, some I'm not sure. We're just gonna have to work hard to try to get it done. But I have confidence that we can do that. And if they're willing to talk to us, we're certainly willing to talk to them. And I've talked to the mayor and the vice mayor, and they are willing to sit down with us and try to work these things out. But there are some issues in that legislative request that I know we're not going to be able to come to an agreement on, but some we are. The one in particular that not to move into the historic district, which I've never wanted to do. I think we had an agreement a long time ago not to do that. It was a verbal agreement, I think, but I think we can put it in a formal agreement not to do that, not to try to condemn any property in the historic district. I think that's what they fear most of all. So these are things we need to sit down with them and work out, and I think we'll be able to do that. Any questions about that? Thoughts?
I was encouraged that they decided, I think appropriately, not to try to strip eminent domain from the charter, because essentially how would you do any sort of infrastructure project? And I appreciate Chairman Foley that you spoke to that effect. But how would you do a real project? How would you do a roads project if you can't buy property that isn't for sale?
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I don't think they realized when they put that in there that taking that out would affect the whole county. I'm in agreement that we don't want to mess with the historical district. That's just not what we want to do. So if we can work that out and get that designated to apply to the historic district, then that's what we need to do. Okay. All right, next thing on the agenda was the port tariff. Chris, you know, in the past, when Kendra Morgan was here, they always presented a new tariff agreement at the end of the year for us to approve. I'd like you to come back by the end of our meeting in December next month with a new tariff with the rates, and let us approve those rates to include the tugboat, if you could. And I think if we do that at the December meeting, we can stop all this talk about tariff. I think that's just a good way to approach it.
Certainly, we'll definitely look at that and see if we can get that done.
Okay, appreciate it.
So is there a way for us to coordinate with the experts that were hired, that we've already paid for with RSNH? Because one of the requirements is that our tariff has to be competitive, and they are experts in regional ports. So would they be able to maybe give us some information? Maybe we could ask them to give us some, you know, some other ports published. I mean, it's all publicly available.
There are guidelines that we've always used not to go over a certain amount for, and we look at tariffs from other ports. We look at Jacksport, we look at Brunswick, we look at Savannah. we look at all those tariff rates and that's what we say, we have to be competitive with them. If we can drop it a nickel here, raise it a nickel there, then that's competitive. We can do that. Depending on our situation and how, what we do at our port as opposed to what they might do. Tug rates are one thing too. It costs a lot of money to bring a tug over here as opposed to them using it in Jacksonville, so.
I would like to at least ask if they could provide us any sort of support in that process, just because that they work for us and that's a big part of our strategic, planning is how do we stay competitive? And it is our job to set the tariff in coordination with the operator.
We have someone here from Reynolds Smith and Hill, and David, if you come up, can I ask you about that? Can y'all help us with that? And what can you do to help us?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. David Kaufman. Yeah, we'd be happy to coordinate with you all and Chris and his team to review those regional tariffs and see what items may be. I know there are certain items that maybe in your tariff that are not in other ports, and other ports may have certain charges that you do want to consider.
Right.
And yours as well. So we'd be happy to
Awesome.
work on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, here, next thing on the agenda, are the outstanding items for port operators. Some of these we're not going to talk about because we've already addressed them. And some of them may be in litigation. The one I want to ask Chris about is the port employee count and recruitment and status report. Can you help us out with that?
Sure, I'll certainly try. Things are progressing with recruitment. We've hired 3 new folks in the month of October into the first week of November. We now have sufficient manning for actually 4 gangs. We've surpassed 3, which was our standard, which we were having trouble with for a while there. And, there's no issues with any of the customers getting all the labor that they need. So that's starting to loosen up a bit, but it's also of us raising wages. Not as much as we would like. We need to do more, and that's what we'll get into with the COVID discussion. I don't have any objection in principle on the list of employees. We're waiting for kind of a final advice of counsel on the privacy issues, maybe how we can do that. But we have no problem proving how many people work here. I just don't want the employees to feel like we're giving out names and positions if they're not comfortable with that. So
Sure.
we're working on it.
Okay, very good. All right, next thing was the 4 points lien release from the operator. Commissioner Hill, was that something you wanted to?
Yes, we didn't, Rosanna and I went through all of the documents and all we found was preliminary documents. Was the lien release of satisfaction ever filed?
I can tell you there's no lien on the tugboat, and there never was a lien, even though we had the loan. The decision with Judge Brand was not to actually put a lien on it because we expected, and fortunately it happened that the grant funding came through quickly and the loan was quickly satisfied.
Okay. So is the tug registered with the Coast Guard, with the U.S. Coast Guard?
Absolutely registered with the U.S. Coast Guard, and I can also confirm, and we can get you the updated information, but it is titled to open.
Okay, so we requested the title and the registration, and I asked Patrick, is there a way to validate with the Coast Guard? He said he wouldn't really know how to do that, but we requested this several months ago. So could you tell us when you'd be able to provide that information?
Yeah, I think we can certainly provide that before the next meeting. And you'll see that there's a vehicle number, and anybody can look it up with the Coast Guard. It's registered to OHPA, and it's free and clear, and OHPA's name and fully up to date.
And then the next item is the captain employment information. Does the captain work for Worldwide Terminals or Nassau Terminals?
He does.
Which Nassau Terminals? Or?
We don't make that distinguishment with the employees typically. I mean, I'd actually have to check with our controller, but we're actually, yeah, we're working with him, and he does work for us since the date of he basically came over with the tugboat. He used to work for the owner, and we kept him employed continuously since then.
As your employee.
Yes.
Not something, somebody to call in. Equipment inventory, you still need that? Not having equipment inventory, I thought we would.
I think the next item was the Fort Punch maintenance report. So whenever we acquired the tug, remember, we had I think it was $250,000 was in reserve thereabouts of the purchase price. My understanding from reading the grant is that the tug is a barge service and that the barge service is not in service yet. But the tugboat is being used in the interim. And so we are still in the, I may not be using the right terminology, but it's like the implementation phase of the grant. So this is sort of like the construction phase of building a warehouse, but it's with the tug. And so my question is just, what is the account balance, or what payments have been made of that $250,000 that was reserved for operations and maintenance costs?
Pierre has all that information. He actually handles the payments. I'm in copy, but he processes invoices. He has just a reconciliation every month from the contractor in terms of how that's being spent. So he can answer that. Pierre?
I don't have the, I mean, I'll
Right.
send you the report.
Right.
I don't have the answer with me tonight, but obviously, yes, we have monthly invoices that are being paid from the escrow, $250,000.
Okay, and so what type of items does that cover?
I can help Pierre. It's all maintenance items, including, any extraordinary items, every day, every week, every month items, supplies, paint, and any paperwork filings that the captain has to do to maintain his current registrations and crew registrations and that kind of thing. It's complete.
So the report you have has that level of detail?
I will send you, yes,
Okay.
it breaks down, the invoices they send us break down the various items, and I will send you the year-to-date,
Okay,
what we've spent.
awesome, thank you. And then we did get the next one, the OHPA equipment inventory. We did receive a lot of that in writing before the last meeting.
Yes.
We already discussed that. I know.
Yes. Next one, I don't think we can talk about status of corporate espionage allegations. I don't think we-
I just wanted to ask if Mr. Reducci was indeed pursuing charges against one of our longest standing customers, Robert Cook.
Talk about
I can't discuss it. This is still under active law enforcement investigation by more than one agency, so it's really not up to us.
Well, the charges that you allege were corporate espionage, which would be your company asserting that another company is trying to steal information, is not the federal government investigating a federal crime. That's a private business saying that there was a, right? I mean, it's a claim by you as an operator against one of our longest standing customers. So that's why I'm concerned.
Patrick, can you speak on this?
I have no knowledge. It's an ongoing investigation. I know the same thing you all do. So unfortunately, no, I can't.
I can't discuss this, but one thing you have incorrect is that any potential charges, and for your information, corporate espionage can be both a federal and a state of Florida crime, would not be against any of our customers, but rather a part-time consultant employee of a customer. And the customer and Worldwide have an excellent relationship, and it's not even slightly being tensioned by any potential investigations. The fellow did what he did, along with another fellow, and it's up to law enforcement. That's all I can say.
Okay, let's move on. Capital improvement plan, that's gonna be incorporated into our master plan, so I don't see any need to talk about that right now. We'll And of course, the operator will be involved in that also. So, next thing is customs house maintenance invoices. Chris, we've gotten several invoices for the customs house for air conditioning and cleaning.
I have some news on that.
I hope so.
I've gotten board approval since we last spoke to get those paid. And if you haven't paid them,
We've paid them,
Then
so
we'll square up with.
we'll ask for reimbursement. Okay, very good. That's what I wanted to hear.
Show me the money.
All right, let's move on to new business. Y'all want to keep going or take a break? What's your thought?
I requested.
Take a 5-minute break. Next thing on the agenda is new business. Go right next door. All right, let's talk about under new business, first of all, the master plan. I asked you to put together a stakeholders list last meeting, and I haven't seen a complete list. Who has not submitted their names to Rosanna? All right, you got one more meeting.
I made 3 phone calls and I got turned down 3 times.
I made 3 phone calls and I got 3 positives, so.
Well, I know. Let me see what I've got here. Got a timeline.
We're not supposed to submit nobody unless they said they were interested, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted you to talk to everybody that
Right.
you want to submit. I have 5 names myself that I could submit, actually 6, because I talked to another one tonight that they would be willing if we needed them to serve. Commissioner Hill gave us some names. Have you talked to all of those?
Well, I talked to half of them, so there's, on the first list that I sent you, Rosanna, I'd only talked to half of those people. When you said, please make contact with everyone, then I contacted more, so.
Okay, let's try to have your names in, and whatever names we have by next meeting, that's the names we'll pick from.
Okay.
So, and maybe just so we don't overlap, I can tell you the names of the people that I've already talked to.
Well, I've got them right here.
Oh, okay.
Rosanna sent me that one. I guess you can send it out to everybody.
Let's do that.
You and I did have a
We don't
name,
need to,
one name in particular.
yeah, we don't need to put it out right
And I
now.
talked to him. So I'm gonna use him.
Yeah, but let's do whatever we send out,
I don't want to talk about anybody specific right now.
right, until they, if we will.
Well, the people I spoke with were very happy to be asked.
Oh, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I think they were
Most of
honored.
mine were, I had one that said he'd rather not, so I moved on
Yeah.
and put somebody else in his place. And
Yeah, he's a little too busy at the moment, but I got to.
you gotta understand that it's not a monthly meeting. It may be once every, what, David, 3 months?
I think the schedule calls for 3 total.
3 total meetings over several months, so it's not a daunting task. And then we have the project schedule. Justin could not be here tonight. He had something going on with his wife. They had a previous obligation. He was going to be here for our next meeting in 2 weeks, but we got to talk about that meeting, whether we're going to have it or not. And I guess if we go ahead and do that now.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you don't mind. Have we chosen a, representative from us to be on the board yet?
No,
That's that.
we don't have to right now.
No? Okay.
We're going to wait till we get everybody, all the names, and then we discuss who we want from the board. It's under other items on our agenda, down at number 10, but let's go ahead and discuss that now so we can determine when we get this list in. We've got a schedule for November 24th.
Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving Eve. No, probably some of them cannot be here for that meeting. Is that correct? Is there anybody that cannot be here?
I cannot.
John.
I won't.
It's
That's three,
actually,
so
it's actually on the 23rd at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Because on the
we
20,
changed, that's right, we changed it to the 23rd. Who cannot be here on the 23rd? Y'all go.
Family coming in.
Come on.
It's,
Well, they can wait a couple hours.
I finally got my
They want
mom
you out of the house anyway.
and my sister actually in Florida finally for Thanksgiving.
Well, you'll only be gone a couple hours.
People coming from California.
Okay, if y'all don't want to do another meeting this month, we'll put it off till next month. All right, we'll cancel a meeting then for that week, not have a meeting. So, and I'll call Justin, and you can talk to him also about coming to the first meeting in December. You don't have a problem with that meeting, anybody, right? Everybody's gonna be here the 8th.
Yeah.
We may do some attorney work then too, so. All right, that's what we'll do. And then we'll decide about December 22nd, that's the second meeting in December, whether we want to do that one or not. All right, let's move back up to. The Coast Guard does a yearly inspection of the port, and they did their audit or inspection a couple of weeks ago, and I heard from Ray Nelson, who is the terminal manager. He's the one that's in charge of getting that done and working with them. And there were no problems with that inspection. Everything passed, so I just wanted to pass that on to everybody. He sent me the report and said no problem. I had asked the terminal manager to be here tonight because I just basically wanted him to be able to tell us about some of the way they do things at the port, operations, how they handle cargo when it comes in, how they do safety, and those aspects, but he couldn't be here tonight, so hopefully we can get him set up for doing something in the future. We had an FDOT meeting on last week. Was it last week? Yeah. Third. This week. I can't even remember. It runs together. So
Last week.
last week, I thought it was last week. And we went over the grants. And some of the grants need to be executed, need to be worked on. We have a grant that we're able to use for the warehouse, fabric warehouse. The two lighting grants are the one that we really need to look at closely and get started on doing those.
Can we tie them into cameras? Like
No.
cameras? No.
We've taken care of the cameras, it was a major expense.
Oh, yeah,
We've
okay.
ordered the replacement cameras.
Yeah,
But, yeah, we're working hard on the main lighting and electrical grant, which I think can be used to address the damage we had to the electrical vaults because of the flooding. We're getting prices to eliminate those vaults. We've had outages on internet and power the last couple of days because of damage from the floodwaters over the weekend to that particular vault, which is 30 years old and it's too low. It needs to be raised. We're gonna get that grant, definitely.
yeah. As I said, one of the grants we could use for the fabric warehouse and the crane cables, so we're covered there. And then the two lighting grants, we have to get those taken care of quickly because the time is running out on. CL 46, Chris, what was that one? Yeah, do you remember?
What was that?
CL 46 or CIL 46?
Port master plan?
Port master.
CIL 46, the master plan. Oh, yeah.
Master
plan. There, I told them we'd be submitting invoices for that soon. So FDOT was happy about that. Waterside improvement grant. You want to speak about that one, Chris?
Yeah, we're ready to start utilizing that. Has that one been reduced to a grant agreement yet? I'm not sure if they have. That was from, not this past cycle, but the 2020 cycle.
FDOT to provide draft grant agreement 2 weeks prior to the December board meeting.
Okay,
So
they were.
they're working on it. Yeah. Right. What else? I think that was it. So we're aware of all the grants and the age and when they have to be done. The GOL06, the North Dock Ramp and Pilings. We had a lot of months where no activities been done with that. And of course, I said the lighting grants and then the Fort Master Plan. So those, we won't meet again with FDOT until January. They cancel the meeting next month. So we'll go from there. All right. Any questions about any of that?
So you were able to reallocate funding on some of the oldest
Yes.
grants,
Some of,
which we've
yes.
talked about in the past, that we would potentially give the money back if we couldn't use it, but instead they're just gonna.
One grant.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
GOL06.
Yeah,
We have one
GOL06,
building
they
that's gonna go
reallocate.
in December, and then they've agreed to close it out as of the end of the year and reallocate.
Right.
And we're talking with them about which grant to put it on.
Right.
Will any of the grants discuss, help address any of the depth issues that we've had recently?
We're working, we've sent letters to the Coast Guard, the Navy, actually.
Corps of Engineers.
Corps of Engineers, I've sent one. Mr. Bucci has sent one.
That's for the channel.
Right, the pilots have sent one. Are you talking about next to the work?
The
wharf?
dockside, yeah.
Right next to the wharf. How are we standing with that?
Yeah, we have more than 700 feet fully cleared to 40+2, which is enough for one very large ship. And the contractor had some issues with his equipment and he's been delayed getting back in. The south berth needs really basically just some cleaning along the dock. Just a few, cubic yards to be certified and resurveyed to the full draft. But for most of the ships, they can work in either the north or south, even as it is right now, so it's not really an issue, but we're on top of the contract.
And I'm not sure what you know about this, Chris. I got a letter from both Corps of Engineers about situational awareness for drilling of 74 vibracores in the Kings Bay entrance channel from the northern tip of Drum Point Island, well out into the ocean over the next few months.
Yes, I saw that. What that really means is they're going to be using explosives to
Yeah.
deepen that portion of the channel, and it's a notice thing. The Corps gives everybody notice, so if you hear strange noises in the middle of the night or your windows start rattling, you don't have
And
to.
that, so the submarines can keep coming in.
That's right.
Public records request, Commissioner Hill, you got that on the agenda?
Yes, I just wanted to keep this on as long as we have so many outstanding public records requests, just to get a report of how many we have, and, Patrick already said generally that we're moving forward, but how many outstanding ones do we have right now?
31.
A lot.
And we have been, obviously, we've been working on it. With Rosanna being solo, and the sheer volume of the requests, it's taking a while, but we are working on it. But I will say we have been litigation due to our not responding yet, but working on it. But litigation has been repeatedly threatened. So it's imperative that we continue to move forward and get the documents, get them reviewed. I reviewed a bunch of batches today. So we're working on it.
So thank you for coming up with the process that we would, for structuring that. Thank you.
A lot of credit goes to Rosanna as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Rosanna.
All right. Calendar here. The next thing on the agenda is the property tax invoices. Commissioner Hill, you wanted that on there, but that's something that we got some invoices from the property, the tax collector about our property taxes, and that's an issue that we're going to be taking up with the Value Adjustment Board next week. We have a meeting with the Value Adjustment Board next Tuesday at 10 a.m. to talk about this. So that's not something we have to pay right now. I know they have to send it out to us. That's the reason that the tax assessor wanted to come out and look at the property, so they could figure out the value of the property and look at everything, so that's been done. and-
So the tax bill doesn't have to be paid pending the challenge?
No, not before the challenge.
Well, I'm not sure what the due date on the invoices is, but we should let the hearing run its course on Tuesday.
Yes. There are several options about paying that. You can pay it up until April. It costs a little more each month. If you delay, if you pay it immediately, it costs less than it would if you pay it in April. So that's what they send it out early, so.
So my thought was just that if ultimately the property appraiser were to determine that there was a tax due to the use of the property,
And belong to.
right? And so would we need to, I mean, do we have to pay that? Number one, do we have to pay it during the course of the challenge, or would we need to pass it on to whoever does need to pay it?
I think that we need to let the hearing run its course and see what the special magistrate's ultimate decision is, because that decision is appealable. But we won't know what the basis of the decision is until the hearing takes place.
Okay, so we don't need to look at our budget to
No,
potentially
no.
evaluate that.
No. All right, let's move on. Committee reports. I talked about FDOT. I'm gonna add FDOT to our committees, and I think the chairman should be the person responsible for FDOT, since chairman's the one that gets invited to the meeting, so I'm gonna take that. Port security, there were no issues. I talked to Ray Nelson, and there were no issues over the last month. So, Customs House, Commissioner Franklin.
Don't have anything to report on it. I've been about that in the last month, so
I think we made some good progress on getting the repairs done.
We're just down to having to wait to order those windows, but we're gonna put some weatherproofing plexiglass windows to get through.
I've talked to Director Parrott, and he says everybody's happy, so as long as
That's
they're happy, we're happy.
Okay.
Right? Corps of Engineers, there's been nothing else. We haven't heard, I haven't got any response from Corps of Engineers about our dredging project. I think we've got to wait till the federal government makes the funds available, and you know where that's standing right now. Economic development.
Okay, the team of the Economic Development Board met today with the county commissioners and some other officials. We met at the Crawford Road and County Road 121 intersection. We had a ribbon cutting for the paving of that road. They hope to have it completely paved in the next couple of weeks. Once that is paved, that just really opens the door for Crawford Diamond. Opens it up for customers to really start looking at it. So it's a lot of things in the works there. We still have some projects out there that are really close. And again, I think it's gonna happen very soon, and the dominoes will start falling. Very positive things are coming up.
Okay, we did get a letter from Economic Development Board thanking us for our commitment to the $3,000 and asking us if there's any way that we can find in our budget to increase that. Please do so. I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Just curious, Vice Chair Cole, the Board of County Commissioners has posted for the Economic Development Director. Do you know anything about that?
That's within their house. That's not, has anything to do with
That doesn't have
EDB. That's just somebody within their house to be able to focus on economic development. There's nothing to do with our
Economic Development Board.
board. We're still intact. We're still going. Sherry Mitchell is our director, not our interim director anymore. So she is the director. We've got, we're doing fine, except for donation side. We need help there.
So with the money that that's coming in from the COVID funds, they're to reimburse us for money spent. Can we spend that money towards the Economic Development Board? So,
Yeah, that's part of.
I mean, it's money we spend out, say, for the salary for the
Right
term.
here, that's part of what we can spend that money for.
And it could be a one-time or, okay.
So I mean, once we get, my view is that, once we get the funds in and we know exactly what we're looking at with that appropriation, maybe we can visit what we sent them and maybe give them a little bump up. You know, we'll be in a better economic position.
Rosanna, would you want to keep that on the agenda for next month, and so we can discuss it and see where we are with the COVID funds? We'll go from there. All right. Emergency management, Commissioner Frank.
Oh, that'd be the thing before.
Mike, you want to talk about that?
I just want to say that I've served on many of the EOCs, Emergency Operation Commands, during the hurricanes with Florida Army National Guard, and during these last hurricanes that we had, I went with Laura DeBella as a backup for the Economic Development Board, and the fact that I had that I was a commissioner on the board. I applied at that time to be a volunteer with them. They did a background check, and so I have been approved, and I am officially a volunteer for the Emergency Operations Center. This would be during, it could be during anything, not just hurricanes, but it could be during COVID, episodes or whatever. So I'm on that board now. So I'm serving with them, and I meet with Cosgrove and Cooper. He's the new director now, so I see them often. I meet with them often.
So what I'd like to ask Commissioner Franklin, do you want to stay on that committee, or do you want to turn that over?
Mr. Shelton couldn't have it, that'd be good if he's over there.
Yeah, because he's in contact with them all the time. All right, so why don't you take that from there? All right, TCC, Commissioner Hannah,
So
I know you got a report.
I do. This month they had their meetings, and they discussed their next 5-year work program. And in that paperwork that was sent out, there was a letter from the director for planning asking for our submit a list of priorities for inclusion in the next 5-year program. So it's not, and the way they, when I discussed it with them afterwards, it's not, guaranteed funds, but a list, like a wish list, 1 through 10 of what we'd like to see happen, what could happen, or what would better suit our happenings. So I thought maybe we could get with Chris and maybe Mike, because you're on the TPO one, and get something together that I can turn into them at the next meeting. Maybe there's a list of, some priorities, and then we can see what funding we can get. And it's not just for the port, but, profit
Countywide.
yeah, other things. I thought it was interesting that they're actually coming to us for some recommendations.
At the legislative meeting today, I saw the chairman of the county commission ask for funding for certain road improvements, especially, well,
Crawford Mountain.
that, but out here, 200 going into the bridge to do something with that. So is that something that they could possibly put on
So
there?
we might, I say we put a list and we get it together and see what they're gonna tell us. No.
Yes.
So I say we try. All right. So I can reach out to Tommy Ford and see
Yeah,
what the
please
lists
do.
are. I'll let him know about that and see if there's something we can work for you.
If they can put it on their list, then that'll help with that problem.
Tom serves on that board now. He's on the TPO board
Okay,
as a representative of
Yeah.
the board of county commissioners.
okay,
He attended the meeting today.
okay.
But
Yeah, I'll reach out to him.
Any other questions about any of that?
I mean, if you guys have any kind of fun, I mean, not, the way I look at it, looks, I keep thinking we're getting short end of the stick of motion. priority funding, and that's fine. I see it one-sided, but I'm a selfish person. I can admit it. So if I can get Nassau County more money for growth, or, for what we need, if there's a way to push it,
Infrastructure,
yeah, for infrastructure improvements. I say, it's all,
not housing. Yeah.
put our heads together and see a way to make things flow better.
The wish list is nice,
Yeah.
but we are getting some, and, they've got a 30-year plan, and there's things on it today that are, I'm up next, yeah. Okay, let me go ahead with that.
Yeah.
We met today, and so there's many
TPO,
things
yeah.
that we talked about today, and there's improvements to the bike trail and continuation of the bike trail, and that was definitely in there. There was resurfacing of 121, and there's resurfacing of Griffin Road, between all of Griffin Road from State Road 200. And there's, we're getting our piece of the pie to a degree.
The bike plan I gave to Rosanna a couple months back. We put in our, it's on our website. Remember that survey and everything involved in that? And that link tells you exactly what's being done over the course of the next 2 years for that, which is a pretty extensive thing. I mean, they're opening up a nice, avenue for the bikers on the island, so to speak, safety wise. But again, if there's a wish list, we can get together, maybe we can get some.
Very good. All right, the next two items were the west side chamber and the east side chamber. What I'm gonna do this coming year is put that into one committee. And we're gonna call it the Nassau Chamber of Commerce. Because it's no longer a west side and east side, it's just one. So there's no need to have two people assigned to that when the west side doesn't even meet. It's all east side, and would you be willing to take that?
Sure.
Continue with that, and we'll just call it Nassau Chamber of Commerce. So you got anything to report?
Sure. We had our leadership Nassau class yesterday, and the next class is focused on local government. So they've invited all of the class to go and attend the city and county meetings, and they've advertised the date. So Jeremiah Gleason was here earlier from the city's, he's the facilities director for the city.
Right.
That's why he was here tonight, which I was glad he accepted my invitation. And the chamber is also hosting their candidate training on the 17th, so that's coming up. But the chamber, the most recent Leadership Nassau class focused on arts, history, and the environment. And so we heard from Keep Nassau Beautiful, from Linda Bell, from 5 different organizations, 2 of which focus only on doing arts in schools, because apparently since the time that my husband was in school here in the school district, there is no longer funding for arts programs until high school.
That's
And
true.
so the funding is being done by nonprofits, they're bridging that gap. So it made me think about the pipeline of workers and interest in industrial jobs, interest in port jobs. And we just need to, I think we need to include in our planning a program which engages with students to let them know that forestry jobs are cool, that port jobs are cool, that being an electrician is a great way to support your family. The trades are a great way to support your family.
I mean, it's take from somebody who I went to Temple University on scholarship for biochemistry. I was going to change the world. I dropped out to be an electrician, and I ain't looked back yet. I love it. It's a shame, because people don't focus on the trades, and there's so many kids out there that are losing it. It's a sin.
I mean, we have to think about the future of the county and how do we make it so that the next generation can stay here and work here. That's really kind of our job here on this board, is, sustainable development. But the chamber is looking at those, those types of programs, and they can help facilitate that. I included Regina Duncan on my list for the strategic planning, and I know she wants to come in and do a presentation to the board about just some ideas of what they could do to help us maybe craft a program within schools.
I would definitely be interested in figuring that out, because I think I think we're missing the boat on that way. I talked to you about that, Chris, with the trades and stuff. I think we're definitely missing the boat with the local schools.
And then is the Leadership Nassau class going to visit the port at all?
They did it in 2019.
Yeah, just before COVID.
suggest if they want to come by.
Yeah, we talked about that. They did it the one time just before COVID hit.
I'll let them know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the next step is city commission. Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, so we covered some of the legislative requests, but I know that the board also received a lighting request from the city. That was another item that came up. The facilities department was asking about 2 lights that are on Port
Yeah,
property
yeah.
that are, I think, right across from Wicked Bow. So I don't know who was complaining about the lights or what the issue is in terms of security, but I just wanted to follow up on that.
I talked to the terminal manager today, and he said those lights have been repaired. I think there's one still, the bulb coming in for it or something in order. Also talked to someone tonight that may want those lights taken down. We'll talk about that.
To brighten your window.
Yeah, but the lights have been repaired.
And if you do, and if you don't.
Well, we'll see. Anything else in the city? I'm gonna go to the city commission meeting next Tuesday. They're gonna, the legislative request is on their agenda. It's advertised in the paper today, and they have to have a public hearing. And I think that's gonna take place next Tuesday, and I'll be there. I'm probably gonna speak about something. I think we have consensus from the mayor and vice mayor and another commissioner to maybe an interlocal agreement. Take care of the situation. I don't want this to go through the legislature, because when you start changing things, it's hard to get it changed, and then it's even harder to get it changed back in the future if you needed to.
And then they start pickpocketing things.
And so interlocal agreements are easy to change, with the agreement of both parties. So I think that's where we need to go with this. And as I said before, we can accommodate some of their needs, and if they will be willing to accommodate ours. They're asking us to help them with the channel. We're willing to do that. So I told Vice Mayor, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. So that's where we stand right now. All right. Yes, Florida Ports Council, you want to talk about that?
Yes, I attended as I mentioned earlier, I attended the Florida Ports Council in Tampa, and down there 3 days. We had a lot accomplished. There were probably 25 or 30 people in attendance there. Our first day, we did a SWOT of our, what we needed to do to get our summaries. We made plans for what it was about was to try to come up with ideas and plans that we could go to the governor as a workshop, so that we could go to the state and request help, whatever we could do to help them and whatever they could do to help us. So we had a really good facilitator, and there were sheets and sheets and sheets torn off of the board and left all around the room. And from those, they were able to come up with the plans for the next 5 years, what we wanted, what we would like help with, and what we could help them with. And so I think there was a lot of positive things that went on there. I did a lot of networking. I think it was very good, and I was very happy to attend. And I think we're just we're in a good position right now.
Okay, very good. All right, next thing is the office manager's report. That report is in your packet. If you have any questions, ask now. All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Any other items to be brought by the commissioners?
Go ahead.
So I did bring up, this was after the deadline for the agenda, that this came through. The Fernandina Beach, City of Fernandina transmitted their amendments to their comprehensive plan to the state, and they received some comments back. And I didn't get a copy of the original transmission, but I did get a copy of the comments back, and so I shared them with Patrick. But I wasn't sure if we should object, because I think there is a process to comment or to provide feedback on the sport sub-element. But I wanted Patrick to weigh in and give us some advice on what we should do, if anything.
Take a look.
So if we do need to comment within a period before the next meeting, we've already come up with a draft of what we were okay with. Can we just give the consensus authorization to write a letter that we reject? Or-
Can you send a copy of that to Rosanna and let her send it to us?
She did,
Oh, you send it out?
yeah, she has the, I think Kelly gives, I think it came from Kelly Gibson,
Oh,
so.
probably want to have to look at that.
Is it the one up on the screen? That's the one you
I can't even
sent
read
me.
that. I can't even-
So it's the policy that we discussed as a board and,
I'm talking about the comments back.
right,
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
oh, from the, okay, I understand.
Yeah,
Let's look
Yeah,
at it. and-
that is also in the email. I don't know if that's what she has up here, but that's also in the email.
okay. All right, very good. Anything else?
Yes, congratulations and on being the chair, and thank you all for your vote of confidence for me as vice chair. And I am positive that we can work together. The two of us can work together as a team, but all of us can work together as a team. And I thank everyone here tonight for their stability and cooperation. I think we kind of over that hump, and I think we need to focus on the positive. That's what we did tonight, and not the negative. And let's move forward and keep it positive.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. I think, thank you. But you know, but yes, we need to be more positive. We need to work better together to work out some of these issues. We still have some issues coming up, and we'll get those worked out. We'll work out a, you know, there's no saying in our organization I belong to, who best can work and best agree, and that's what we need. Anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you to the audience.